Hello everyone, it's Gordon here. Welcome to Kino Therapy. Today I wanted to do a video, considering it is March, International Women's Month. I figured I would do a video on the greatest female filmmakers, or just some great female filmmakers out there to recommend to you guys. Considering the whole point of this channel is to broaden your horizon on cinema and inform you and suggest to you different kind of movements and films and filmmakers especially. And there are so many great female filmmakers out there for you to explore. Also, I did one like this last year for Black History Month, so I figured I would do one for Women's Month. Now, some of these filmmakers I haven't seen a whole ton of movies from. Some of them I'm not super familiar with at all, but I know of them. So take this with a grain of salt. Maybe my description of the filmmaker might not be as in-depth as some of the fans of these filmmakers want it to be, or as you would like it to be as a viewer, and I apologize for that. But, take cinema as an adventure. You know, if I suggest a name, and I say what country they're from, or what movement they're a part of, and I don't give a lot of information, look it up yourself. Yeah, stop relying on me, lazy sack of... No, but seriously though, but yeah, take the risk. Take a risk. Maybe you'll really love this filmmaker. Maybe something about them sounds interesting to you, and yeah, you can explore them on your own, and without having to hear the input of someone else, and you can form your own opinion about them. And I think giving you the reins is actually pretty nice. It's pretty generous. I mean, right off the bat, we should say that women do not make very good movies. No woman has really ever made a good movie. With one exception. There is only one good movie made by a woman. The greatest movie of all time, Triumph of the Will. We'll get to Leni Riefenstahl in a bit. I wanted to start off strong here. First, we got the queen of cinema, Agnes Varda, or Agnes Varda, depending on what part of the globe you are from. I firmly believe Varda is one of the greatest filmmakers to ever live. She is top 30, maybe even top 10 to me. Every one of her movies has some creative, brilliant concept, and she follows through with that to explore a statement she's making, to explore some part of humanity, or to dazzle you. She explores feminist themes, but also themes of society and philosophical ideas, ideas about art, ideas about movements and people's struggles. In the later part of her career, she started making a lot of documentaries in which she was sort of the personality of the documentary, sort of guiding us through these subjects. She is such a wonderful person in real life, at least the personality she displays on screen, but that seems to be her personality in real life as well. She is just one of the most sweetest, soulful human beings. She loves life. She loves people. That positivity just radiates through these documentaries she makes. She is a better documentary personality than Michael Moore or Morgan Spurlock combined. Wonderful human being, wonderful artist, wonderful provocateur. Check out Agnes Varda. Check out pretty much anything she's made. I mean, maybe there's a few duds in there, but I have not seen anything from her that I was at least not a little impressed by. Next, we got Chantal Akerman, who made a big splash with experimental cinema, sort of echoing the French New Wave, but she came slightly later, and she also sort of has her own style. She is famous for her quietly provocative and only recently controversial film, Jeanne Dielman. This movie was recently placed at the #1 spot of Sight and Sound's greatest movies of all time, to some people's dissent. While I don't know if I can confidently say it's the #1 greatest movie of all time, that's a very tough award to give any movie, in all honesty. I think it's one of the greatest movies of all time. I think it is a fantastic, magnificent film. It's a movie you need a lot of patience for, but it's a film that if you really engage with it and submit yourself to it on the film's terms, it really comes together. And if you watch it, you were rewarded by the end of the film. Some of her films are very slow, but they also blend documentary and fiction as well. Her films can be very personal. They explore feminist themes, of course, but they also explore sexuality and homosexuality and family and also feeling lonely and isolated. A very quietly powerful filmmaker. Again, just constant experimentation. She was incredible. Next up is one of my favorite film artists of all time, Maya Deren. She was a pioneer in experimental filmmaking, not just for women, but for the whole board. Her films are landmark achievements as far as surrealism and experimentation goes, but mostly surrealism. Her masterpiece, Meshes of the Afternoon, is a film that is often watched and often revered and studied. The way she was able to tap into the self-conscious and make it so visceral, so beautiful, but also so haunting as well. Her films are very dreamlike. They are some of the most dreamlike films you will ever see. They rely on dream logic. Her films were a huge influence on David Lynch and a lot of other surrealist filmmakers that followed after that as well, which I can't name right now for some reason. The way she relies on dream logic but uses it to represent real struggles, real issues that her or anybody else might be dealing with. I love dreamlike films though, so I am a huge fan of Maya Deren. She only made short films, and I believe she only has about 12 movies, if I'm correct, 12 films. She died tragically young, unfortunately. She was a very talented person, though. She was also a dancer, a poet, a photographer. She was amazing, and we unfortunately didn't have her as long as we would have liked to. So please go see Maya Deren. Love her film so much. Another great experimental filmmaker is Shirley Clarke. Clarke burst onto the scene with The Connection. I believe that was her first film. A very controversial film for the early 60s, in which it documents a room full of heroin addicts. It is a fictional film, but it is shot like a documentary, and the documentary crew actually gets involved in what's happening, and that's very interesting. Not even mockumentaries really do that, or real documentaries do that. I don't know which one's more realistic for getting engaged, but yeah, it's really interesting how it does that. She has done biographical documentaries on Jason Holiday and Robert Frost. She makes very minimalist experimental films such as Bridges Go Round, Skyscraper, Butterflies. Her series 4 Journeys into Mystic Time is a very excellent series. It deals with dance. They all consist of interpretive dances, and they have great music, great dancing, obviously, really cool visuals, the way the dances are shot, and of course, watching the dances play out. It's really interesting to watch these and interpret them for yourself. As far as more modern filmmakers, I kick myself for leaving this person off of my Greatest Filmmakers Working Today video. I am so mad that I left this person off. Jennifer Kent. Jennifer Kent directed The Babadook, which is a very great horror movie in my opinion. I love the imagery. I love the way it represents this mother's struggles of just being a mother and trying to cope with grief and dealing with a temperamental son. After that, she made not so much a horror movie, but a much more frightening movie called The Nightingale. It's sort of, two sides of the same coin as being real horror rather than supernatural horror. This film basically deals with colonialism in Australia, but deals with a lot of people who are oppressed, not just the Aboriginals, but also women. This film just gets more and more disturbing the more it goes on. It just gets harder to watch, but it's such a well-made film. It is such a gripping film, and there is a slight glimmer of hope. There is a relationship built up, and it does offer a hope, a little hopeful note for fighting against oppression. Greta Gerwig has broken into the mainstream with her recent film Barbie being the highest-grossing movie of the year, I believe. Even before that, though, Gerwig won the hearts of many women, but also men, with her very earnest, independent films, such as Lady Bird or Frances Ha, and of course Little Women, which is a pre-existing novel, but there's a lot of her in that as well. These are very personal stories, and they have a lot of humor and a lot of heart, and it's very easy to like them due to just how real they feel. So if you've only seen Barbie, I highly recommend Lady Bird and Frances Ha, even though she didn't direct Frances Ha, but she wrote it with Noah Baumbach. We got the Nepo baby, Sofia Coppola. I got nothing against Sofia Coppola, it's just a joke. I like Sofia Coppola, I like her films. Lost in Translation is a beautiful masterpiece, highly recommend that. Got one of Bill Murray's best performances and also Scarlett Johansson. Sofia Coppola has a very distinct style. She's been criticized for style over substance, but I don't think I agree with that. I think she prefers images over sound, and the images aren't in your face, but there's more images than there is dialogue. She has a great eye for visuals and cinematography. These movies just evoke this gorgeous sensibility, just this beautiful, lucid ecstasy you want to be a part of. And to me, it's irresistible. I just love watching her films. Up next, we got Lynn Ramsey. She makes very dark stories, I guess you can say. Films like Ratcatcher, or We Need to Talk About Kevin, or You Were Never Really Here. But they are so compelling. Again, a little bit like Sofia Coppola, she masters atmosphere. A movie like We Need to Talk About Kevin just breezes through this kid's life up until adolescence. It never feels rushed, and you feel every bit of unease that you're supposed to. It also has maybe Tilda Swinton's best performance, so yeah, go watch that one. I love the visuals in movies like Morvern Caller, and of course You Were Never Really Here, which has a great Joaquin Phoenix performance. A movie about Joaquin Phoenix fighting against society. The better movie where Joaquin Phoenix does that. Lynn Ramsey is an incredibly talented filmmaker, definitely check her out. Kathryn Bigelow is known for making thrillers and semi-political films, I guess you could say. She directed Point Break in the early 90s. She directed some horror movies before that. And then later she made movies like The Hurt Locker, which won Best Picture, Detroit, Zero Dark 30. She's a director who definitely understands tension. She knows how to grip the audience into the story, into what's happening. Depending on how serious the subject matter is, we're always invested and we're always on the edge of our seats. Claire Denis is a good filmmaker. She's a great filmmaker. I like Claire Denis. I wouldn't say she's a director I think is overrated. I guess she's a director whose films I all like, but don't love as much as other people do, if that makes sense. She loves to tell stories out of order, which I've never had a problem with that, but like, they're very disjointed, and which is fine. Like, I guess you can follow it if you really, really pay attention hard. I guess sometimes it's not always necessary. Her film Beau Travail is excellent and really exemplified that style purposefully and very well. And then she did it for other movies like 35 Shots of Rum, White Material, High Life, and the movies are still good. It's just they're very disjointed. Again, kind of following a theme, I guess, from Ramsey and Bigelow, Denis isn't making, like, romantic comedies or anything. I guess when people think female filmmakers are like, oh, they're gonna make chick flicks, but, like, these women are making some very dark stories, and they're so damn good at it. Better than some male filmmakers, I can tell you that. Anyway, her stories are still riveting. She's a very famous filmmaker, so don't take my word for it. Definitely check out her films. You'll probably be very engaged with them. Coming to Celine Sciamma. Is that even how you say it? Celine Sciamma? Very well researched, right? She is a little more on the lighter side, but not so much. Her films are always about characters in dire situations, but finding a lighter side, fighting joy and goodness in what is happening. Her magnum opus, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, is a magnificent film. It is a film that takes place during a time when women did not have very many rights, and centers around certain women who are restricted in a sense, yet they experience a little holiday, a little rest, and they all find themselves in that rest. Petite Maman is a very short film. It's only about 70 minutes, I think, so I highly recommend checking that out. She also co-wrote the animated movie My Life as a Zucchini, which is pretty good. So yeah, I really love this filmmaker's sentiments and just their perseverance that they put in their characters. Kelly Reichardt is known for her simplicity. Sometimes they're a little too simple, but I like slow films like that. A film such as Meek's Cutoff is a little too slow, even for me. A film such as Wendy and Lucy is a very heart-wrenching film. It is a very bare and raw film, portraying this woman trying to find her dog. A movie such as First Cow really embodies the simplicity very well and comes out much more transcendental and beautiful. It feels like Reichardt has finally become fully realized and harnessed her potential with this film, using minimalism to say much. Chloe Zhao has a fascination with people and just their lives. The Best Picture winner Nomadland is a great portrait of a woman living the van life, living not homeless but houseless. She is not depressed, it is her choice, Bill Maher. Or something like Songs My Brothers Taught Me, which portrays a Indian reservation and it just portrays these people's lives, and that's interesting enough. Unfortunately, she directed Eternals, which some have said is the worst Marvel movie. Uh, but fingers crossed. Here's hoping she makes a comeback. She has a very unique voice, and I would love to see her make more movies like Nomadland or The Rider. Jane Campion has gotten a lot of recognition, known for her 1993 film The Piano, and recently the very excellent Power of the Dog. Absolutely love that movie. Unfortunately, there's a lot of films I still need to see from this director, but these are both very good movies. The Piano is very much about the female experience and the way men sort of idolize her and objectify her. The fact that she feels like she has no agency without a man in her life. And then you got a film like Power of the Dog, which brilliantly deconstructs masculinity and toxic masculinity in multiple different characters and all these ideas. There's some great cinematography in all these movies, so she has a really good eye for that at least. Yeah, highly recommend those two films, and check out anything else when you can. Sarah Polley recently won Best Director for Woman Talking. You may be asking, is that a movie just about woman talking? Mostly. Most of the movie. There's other things that happen as well. But most of it is conversation. But even then, it reminds me of something like 12 Angry Men or an Ingmar Bergman film, who was very good at making conversations interesting. These women are placed in a moral dilemma, and they really have to make a decision of what to do, what's best for themselves and for their families. Yeah, I think Woman Talking is a great movie. Don't turn away because you think the title is lame. The movie's not. Andrea Arnold makes films with a lot of grit and a lot of realism, but not exactly in a, thriller, suspenseful way, more in a drama way. She's not exactly Catherine Bigelow or Lynn Ramsey. Her films are much more about experiences of young women. Something like Fish Tank is about a young rebellious woman who doesn't fit in with society. She's a little transgressive, but she tries to discover herself and discover what her purpose is in life. Something like that, or American Honey, don't hold back in their subject material. They can be explicit films, but they are very earnest films at the end of the day. Emma Seligman, I have seen 2 films from her so far. She bursts onto the scene with an extraordinary debut, Shiva Baby, starring Rachel Sennett. She recently made the absurdist high school comedy Bottoms, which was pretty funny. Obviously, I'm more partial to something like Shiva Baby, which is such an excellent portrait of anxiety and dealing with family gatherings and insecurities and trying to prevent yourself. It is a comedy, but it is also such a tense movie. It's almost a horror movie, just how much this anxiety shakes this main protagonist of ours. The way the cinematography and the music all work together to just push that feeling inside the viewer, and you are there with her. You are just as uncomfortable as she is. It is one of the most relatable films made of the past few years, of the past decade. It can be a very tense movie, but it's also a very funny movie. Seligman and her lead actress, Rachel Sennett, show a lot of promise, a lot of talent. I look forward to the two of them working together, and I'm really excited to see what they make next. I guess I'll mention this filmmaker real quick, Emerald Fennell. I don't know how I feel about Fennell. I enjoyed Promising Young Woman, although that wasn't a perfect movie. Her recent film Saltburn, let's just say Saltburn feels like a parody of A24 movies. It really does. We've reached that point. We've reached that point in A24's catalog. While Saltburn is not anything special, despite how much it insists it is, Promising Young Woman has some admirable qualities about it. I like the story overall. I like some of the visuals and some of the acting. Her films are very heavy-handed in a way where, Promising Young Woman is about feminism, and then Saltburn is about class issues. And the films are not subtle at all. They don't really present them in any interesting ways or any kind of new ways. I mean, these are only 2 films. Let's see where she goes in the future. Judging by Saltburn, I don't know if she's exactly a promising young woman. But check out that movie. You might like that one. Or you might even like Saltburn. Some people like that. Going back to the early days of cinema, we got Mabel Normand. I actually mentioned Mabel Normand in my classic comedy video. She began her career starring in comedies alongside Charlie Chaplin and other legends. Eventually, she began directing her own comedy films, which made her the first female employed by a major studio to direct movies. These comedies have a very lighthearted quality to them. Normand's personality on screen is a very likable one. She's almost like a predecessor to someone like Amy Poehler. She finds herself in odd predicaments, or sometimes just little adventures. And they're always amusing, very charming, and very funny. Listen, if you're serious about the beginnings of filmmaking, you gotta know the female pioneers who helped shape the art form. While the Lumiere brothers and Georges Méliès were making grand innovations, France also harbored Alice Guy Blaché. She was the first female to direct a film, and at one point the only female director at the time. Debuting in 1896, she introduced color tinting to silent films, as well as having a good understanding of space and mise-en-scene. Some of these films may not be as impressive to you nowadays, but there's something about the images that she puts in her films and the way she uses shadows and blocking. Her film Falling Leaves, for example, really exemplifies this symbol of this tree. There's a really strong gothic undertone to this film, despite the fact that it is actually more of a cheerful, happy drama. Yet the images in this short just stick with you. She also made plenty of comedies, for instance, The Triumph of Feminism, which I think is absolutely hilarious. You can't miss Guy Blaché, you have to check out her films. If Alice Guy Blaché introduced these concepts, then Germaine Dulac perfected them. She took full advantage of the visual medium that cinema had to offer. She made great use of cinematography, but also experimented superimposition, and introduced keen symbolism in her films. Her films were impressionistic, but as they went on, they became much more surrealistic. For instance, The Seashell and the Clergyman, which is a delightful short to watch. Her dramas, such as The Smiling Madame Boudet, showed that you can use these grand techniques not just for surreal fantasies, but you can use them to enhance dramas and give insight into the characters. She was a bold filmmaker, not only tackling issues of feminism, but also social class and the vapidity of the rich. Great characters, great concepts, bold themes. She was way ahead of her time and shaped the art form so much. Germaine Dulac deserves to be mentioned among the greats like D.W. Griffith and Sergei Eisenstein. It is astounding watching these films and seeing just how ahead of their time they were. You won't regret it. You gotta see Germaine Dulac, as well as Alice Guy Blaché. I believe the Criterion Channel had a collection a while ago of early pioneer female filmmakers. If you can't find them on Criterion Channel, you can find them on YouTube. If you're interested in this, I highly recommend checking these movies out. You can't miss these films. Despite how old they are, I guarantee they'll impress you. Then we got Vera Chytilova. I am a huge fan of Czechoslovakian films, and Chytilova's films are just so mesmerizing to watch. Her film Daisies is just a madcap experimental movie. It is funny, but it is also just such a joy to watch. The way she plays around with sound and colors and images, it is absolute insanity, but it is all about just rebellion. It is autonomy, not just from society and the state, but just of logic and life in general. She's almost like Agnes Varda. Her films always have these great ideas, and they feel very dreamlike as well, like Maya Deren. A movie like The Forbidden Fruit is fantastic. And then she has other films that also deal with society and feminist themes with a more like a French New Wave kind of experimental feeling. Definitely check out Czechoslovakian films, but in regards to this video, yeah, definitely check out Vera Chytilova. Lotte Reiniger directed films with her husband, Karl Koch. They made animated films, but specifically their style was silhouette animation. They directed the very first animated film ever, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, and a slew of other just magical, wonderful films. Any animation buff needs to see these movies. They are some of the oldest animated films, and even today, they just have a very unique style. It really does evoke that classical sense of the way, like, before movies even existed. That's how people, they told stories through, like, little silhouette figures or just little little paper puppets and things like that. And it really does evoke that classical sense of storytelling and imagination. They are not limiting at all. It really evokes that sense of wonderment and fantasy that you want from these movies. Speaking of other co-directors, we have Agnes Horanitsky. Maybe that's Anya's too. I don't know. She makes films with her husband, Bela Tarr. She has served as editor and co-director of his films. But she is such a crucial part of his films that I think she deserves to be mentioned, that many people praise her contributions as a fully fledged filmmaker. If you're not familiar with Bela Tarr's films and Horanitsky's films, they're very nihilistic and dreary and begrudging films. They're not happy films at all, but they're very immersive and deep thinking films. You may come out of these movies much more miserable than before, but they are an experience, that's for sure. The next director only directed one movie, unfortunately, before her death, an independent film called Wanda. This has been described as a John Cassavetes film from a female perspective, and I can understand that. It's shot in a sort of cinema verite style with handheld. The quality, like the look of the film, it is a very grainy film. The way it captures just mundane events. There is a story, there is something happening going on with like a bank robber, but just the way this film seems to capture the in-betweens of that, just the happenings, the conversations of these people, the very sad, dreary moments. It's interesting because Wanda is not exactly a feminist character. She's not very intelligent or independent or strong-willed. It's almost like she needs a man to support herself, and it's kind of a tragic story in that sense, the way she latches onto this very toxic person who she eventually finds. But marvelous shooting style. I love just the true rawness of this film. I love seeing the film grain over the setting and these faces. It really takes you back into that place, makes you feel like you just found some VHS somewhere. But it is a very visceral film. Lena Wertmuller makes Italian comedies, but they also dissect politics and society, and of course, relationships, things like that. They're almost Fellini-esque in just how bombastic and absurd these movies can get, or just how farcical these characters act. Yet it makes some pretty interesting points on the human condition, on the way society views men and women. Giancarlo Giannini is in a lot of these movies, and he is hilarious in so many of these. Very enjoyable, very smart films, as bombastic as they can be. Larissa Sheptiko directed a few films while she was in the Soviet Union. Tragically, she died young in a car accident. But her absolute masterpiece is the film The Ascent, which is just a haunting film. It is a wartime film about execution and about standing up for what you believe in. In some ways, it's a tough film, but I think the ending kind of leaves it a little ambiguous. It's a little bittersweet. What exactly are we fighting for? What is it that you stand for? It's about integrity and independence and bravery. Her other films often dealt with war and, the separation war causes with your loved ones and with society. Her films were visually stunning, and it's a real tragedy that she died so early in her career. Ulrich Oettinger. This is a very unknown filmmaker. I was able to catch some of their movies on the Criterion channel, which I think they took off by now. These films almost remind me of Alejandro Jodorowsky. They exist in these strange landscapes of just nonsense. They are blasphemous and obscene, but they are wildly imaginative. They seem kind of low budget, but the low budget effect kind of, it's kind of appealing when you look at the sets and the props and the effects. You may not understand these movies. Hell, I didn't really understand them. I got the gist of a lot of them, though, and even then, I just love looking at these scenarios, these strange, surreal scenarios happening on screen. Naomi Kawase is a very modern filmmaker. She is a part of what I like to call the Japanese poetic realist movement. Directors like Hirokazu Koreeda or Ryosuke Hamaguchi are a part of this. although Japan has always made shomengeki movies like this. She seems to not be as well known, but the way she celebrates just naturalism and simple living, films like Still the Water, really contrast living in the country versus living in the city. Her films deal so much with the human spirit and just overcoming any kind of insecurities or griefs you might have. Films such as True Mothers or Vision are very beautiful films. They deal with a lot of hardships of people, but ultimately they come out overcoming these issues, overcoming these struggles. Absolutely beautiful movies. If you're a fan of shomengeki or poetic realist Japanese films, you cannot miss Naomi Kawase. Love her movies so much. They are so beautiful. And back to Leni Riefenstahl. She is mostly known for making Nazi propaganda movies. Yeah, it's another separate the art from the artist thing, D.W. Griffith situation here. Her films have a lot of respect given to them, though, due to their artistry, their incredible camera work and editing, and match cuts, and just composition. All that stuff is used excellently well. The film's Olympia is a great documentary about the Olympics, from the German perspective, of course, but it's got the Olympics in there, so I mean, it's kind of cool. Yeah, obviously a controversial filmmaker. Was she a Nazi? That's kind of up for debate, too. But she was a good filmmaker, and you can find some really good documentaries from her, and a few fictional films, hopefully ones that aren't Nazi-inspired. Kinuyo Tanaka is a female Japanese filmmaker. She was also an actress. She had the lead role in many of Kenji Mizoguchi's films, a director I love, and I love all the films that she was in. Unfortunately, I have not seen the movies that she has directed, but I did want to throw her out there because it is a testament to Japanese cinema. I know so many Japanese directors. There are so many famous ones, but they're all males except for Naomi Kawase and, of course, Tanaka now. But I would like to spread more awareness about her. So, yeah, Kinuyo Tanaka. Venturing into anime, we got Naoko Yamada, who has made recent films such as A Silent Voice. Personally, these films are a little too contrived and a little too sappy for my tastes. But if you're an anime fan, I feel like you'll like these movies. They're sweet and they're harmless after all, so you might enjoy them. They got some good animation and images as well. Nadine Labaki is a Lebanese director. She was also formerly an actress, and she has become very popular in the world of cinema. Like a lot of people from the Arab or Middle East nations, her films deal a lot with social conventions, yet her films are imbued with a sense of humor and sometimes romance. They might have a tinge of irony to them, although most of her films do tend to lean more towards dramas, they also have a lighter side to them. And this is why Labaki has been so critically acclaimed in recent years, is showing this part of the world in a positive way, in the way that Westerners don't often see these places. Showing these people and these places that they're just like you and me. They're just regular people, they have issues, but they also have good moments as well. A.V. Rockwell recently put out her feature debut after making some short films. 1001 is a very gripping but a very touching story about motherhood and family. It is about poverty. It is about trying to make yourself in the face of adversity, whether that adversity be societal or political or racial or just personal. Julie Dash made a very amazing film called Daughters of the Dust. This is a film that showcases a specific area in time that many people are not familiar with. This film explores so many interesting topics, so many interesting things. The basics you would guess, like such as sexuality or feminism or society or racism. But it also goes into family. It goes about, hard work. It goes into where you belong. Should these people live on this little beach, or should they go into the city, or should they make something more of their lives and make an impact on the world and society and their people? It is a visually beautiful film. It is such an interesting, engrossing film. I love it. Ava DuVernay is still going strong with her recent film Origin. Her films, whether fictional or documentary, they're always exploring just these rough, uncomfortable areas of our world. the most uncomfortable parts of ourselves and our precognitions. A very bold filmmaker, definitely one that you should see. Anne-Marie Jassir is a Palestinian female filmmaker. Perhaps you may want to watch some Palestinian films due to the tragedy happening there right now. Many of her films star Salah Bakri, who is probably one of the most famous Arabian actors working today. Much like Nadine Labaki and many other people from Africa or the Middle East, her films deal with a lot of social conflicts, a lot of moral dilemmas, which really puts people's morals and people's personality and their societal fronts into question. Those two parts of people really butt heads, and they really strive to come to a conclusion. It's people trying to discover who they are, people just trying to find a better life for their family. I find those movies incredibly interesting, so yeah, definitely check out Jassir's films. Then, of course, there's the partnership of Jean-Marie Straub and Danielle Houlet, who were a couple but did not marry because they did not believe in the institution of marriage. They were very politically radical. They made a lot of historical documentaries, but they made a lot of, experimental documentaries, for lack of a better word. Their most famous film is Chronicle of Anna Magdalena Bach. It is a film about the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, but it's done in a way where it goes through a fictional diary of his second wife. And all throughout the film, there are these extended musical numbers, just these one takes of orchestras playing music alongside beautiful images. It's almost like it's taking a documentary and making it fictionalized. Sort of like how a lot of fictional films will pretend to be documentaries. This is a documentary pretending to be a fiction film. And it's a very interesting way to explore Bach and his music. Okay, I think that's about all for now. There are plenty of great ones that I probably missed. Mia Hansen-Løve, Celine Song, Lulu Wang. I'm looking forward to the next films that these directors make. But I think that's enough for you to start out with for now. I hope this video gets released sometime in the month of March. If not, check out these filmmakers anyway. What, you only watch woman-directed films once a year? For 1 month out of the whole year? What's the matter with you? Let me know in the comments if you thought of any great female directors that I missed or you would like to recommend to people. Please let us know. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, thumb the bell. Be on the lookout for more Kinotherapy soon. I will probably do a Kinotherapy singles video soon and a video on the French New Wave. Be sure to follow me on Letterboxd where I do individual reviews. So yeah, I hope I recommended you some great artists to check out. Keep the art of cinema alive and happy viewing.